Hi, my name is Adam and welcome back to my channel, The Edgy Saint. Today I'm going to be talking about what trauma is. So, what is trauma? I think it's a really good topic to cover because I feel like kind of the general perception of trauma are these, horrible catastrophic events like, a car accident or war, and those certainly are traumas. But we all have trauma, various levels of trauma. Life just in and of itself is kind of traumatic. No one gets out alive and no one gets through it unscathed. I would say the best definition that I've heard is trauma is anything that takes you away from or out of your natural state of being. And what is our natural state of being? Well, love and joy. Now, I feel like that might be hard for some people to believe, or they may never have heard that. I know if I was surprised to hear that. If you'd asked me years ago what my natural state of being is, I would have said shit state. When I was 14, I would have said complete, horrible, suicidal, awful, fuck my life, shit state. That's our natural state of being, but that's not really how it's supposed to be. And normal and natural is just what we're used to, but it doesn't mean it has to stay that way. Everybody, not everyone, but most people on the planet, and the planet itself is so traumatized that I feel like we're just kind of used to walking around down and depressed and angry and out of it. And some people don't even know there's anything better. Now, where does trauma come from? Okay, that's an interesting question. The answer is Pluto. Trauma comes from Pluto. It came here when it was about 17 years old. It told its parents to go fuck off. It packed up its shit and it came to Earth to wreak havoc on. No, trauma can come from anywhere. It can come from, it comes from war, it comes from accidents, it can also come from your desk. And I mean that, I'm not kidding. If you run into your desk in the wrong way and you injure your leg and you were in a certain state of mind and a certain emotional state, you can actually have an imprint from that experience if you don't resolve the pattern that can stay with you for the rest of your life. And you can have like a minor fear of desks forever if you don't go back into that event and resolve it. And I find trauma, the most significant and pervasive traumas are, the severely emotional ones. Certainly like war has a major emotional component, but even ones that are just purely emotional, anything that scars you and stays with you over a long period of time can create a trauma. And these things can occur in many different ways. There's so many variables, because we all process life and reality differently. And, some of us don't process it at all at times. For 15 years, all I processed was drugs. We have, different constitutions, different triggers, different sensitivities, and of course, emotional events that have a lot of abuse or neglect will cause a trauma. But trauma can also just come from a misperception or a misunderstanding of something that happened, because your mind creates a reality. Your body doesn't know the difference. If someone is outside your front door and they want to kill you, whether you believe that and it's not true or it is true, you're going to respond the exact same way internally. Now, when you open the door and you find out whether it's true or not true, the rest of that event's going to go very differently. But up until that point, it's the same. Lots of times, especially as kids, trauma comes from moments where we felt love was being withheld or taken away as some form of punishment. And we all do that to some extent. All in all, there really only is love and fear. And Netflix. There's Netflix, which is a combination of love and fear, depending upon how into Netflix you are. but you can't, like, you can humans are complicated. We can feel a lot of different things at once, kind of, but we can't express them in the moment all at one time. Like, you can't be expressing anger and love to someone at the exact same time. You can be expressing anger and you can still love them, but in the moment of now, they can't really feel love and anger from you at the same time. And so when you're a kid and you're more sensitive to these things, like if you're getting yelled at, by a parent or, a teacher, they may still love you, but the experience to the kid is that the love was taken away, and the kid wonders why. And so it creates this pattern of kind of love, no love, based on what you perceive you did to cause the love to be withheld, which most of the time is nothing. Well, not most of the time. I mean, sometimes it depends on what you did. But I mean, plenty of times it's absolutely nothing, and other times it's something insignificant. What happens is you start to create a pattern based on the experience, and these patterns replicate in your life. I don't know, whoever's watching this, if you've drawn in the same kind of people or the same kind of romantic partner or the same pattern in different authority figures. And there's definitely a three-dimensional aspect to this where you just kind of aren't discerning and you pick kind of abusive people. But there's an other dimensional reality creating aspect to this as well. And it manifests in all sorts of ways. It can manifest in, fear of intimacy, inability to, develop friendships, isolation, social anxiety, and the list goes on and on and on. I mention all this because it's very important to be aware of. A lot of people, I feel like, just kind of walk around with these long-standing patterns and events running underneath the surface, and they don't necessarily even know they're feel as bad as they do, or that things can change. And then a lot of times it'll just be, chalked up to like biochemistry, and certainly there's some truth to that. But even your biochemistry is a result of just the things that you keep thinking and feeling, which is a result of the experiences that you've had. And if they're not the result of experiences you've had, they're the result, the imprint on your DNA of the emotional experiences your ancestors had, and that can be changed as well. Now I'll just tell a quick story, just to illustrate what I've talked about today, something that happened to me that scarred me a lot and stayed with me. And this was the result of mostly my perception of the situation. It wasn't inherently necessarily abusive, though you could perceive it that way a little. But, certainly there are scenarios where a parent, beats up their kid repeatedly, and that's just flat out abusive. That's not like, oh, I misperceived the situation. I mean, that's just fucked up. This is a little more gray, but it's important because we all walk away with these feelings and responses and reactions based on, like I said, however we perceive life. So when I was, about 10, I was in 5th grade, we went on this camping trip sort of over the weekend. My school did, my 5th grade class, and we went somewhere, I don't remember where, but there were a whole bunch of schools that went and participated in this, and we all ate together in the auditorium for meals. I don't know how many kids were there. It seemed like thousands, probably not. But you were supposed to wear a name tag, because there was a lot of strange kids nobody knew, and that's how we identified each other. And what they said was, if you ever forgot to wear your name tag, you were going to have to get up in front of everyone and sing. Now, many years later, I became a performer and a singer, and I did theater and musical theater, and, I became comfortable with that stuff. At that time, I'd done none of it. So singing scared the shit out of me. And invariably, I forgot my name tag, and somebody called me out on it. They're like, hey, you forgot your name tag, you ought to get up and sing. And I was like, no, I'm not getting up and singing. And they persisted. They were like, no, that's the rule, you got to get up and sing. And I said no again, and they kept pushing me, and I kept resisting. And finally, all the kids in the auditorium started kind of cheering and chanting my name, like Adam, Adam, Adam. And many years later, I realized that they were just trying to support me. Really, they weren't mocking me or being mean, but I didn't take it that way. And I got under the table and I hid and I started crying. And finally, kind of way too late, one of the counselors was like, okay, you don't have to get up. And it's like, well, fucking, now you say that. You should have stopped a long time ago. And they didn't. And then, apparently there was some other kid that had forgotten their name tag, and they didn't have a problem with it, so they got up. And I saw, then that the singing wasn't as big of a deal as I thought, because it was just like 5 or 6 camp counselors singing a camp song, and the kid just had to kind of do a sing-along with them. But I didn't know that. When they told me I had to sing, I took that shit seriously. I thought the lights were going to go out, and there's going to be a fucking spotlight on my face, and there was going to be a mic and just me and some backing track to some song I didn't know, and I was going to have to sing like, Pavarotti or some guy in a boy band. And I didn't know how to do that, and I didn't want to. Anyway, that event scarred me, and I didn't even know it. I mean, I knew I didn't like it then, but I didn't know it stayed with me until I cleared it and dealt with it many years later. And I make this point for everybody, but like, just say you're a performer and you have social anxiety. I mean, some of social anxiety is natural. I mean, I think public speaking is the number one fear, but there could be these other events that happen way back somewhere that you forgot about that are making it a lot more difficult than it needs to be. And those things can be resolved. Now, I also make this point, like I said, because it's interesting. It's an interesting example of how the perception of the situation created the trauma. Like, for example, my idea of what singing was, when it wasn't. It was actually something very easy and simple. Had I known, I might have been okay with it. That's one aspect of it. And also, to me, I felt like the kids were making fun of me and mocking me. And then as I start to see that that's actually not what was going on, that as you change your perception of the story, it actually begins to change the response in the body. So I think that's enough for today on what trauma is. Please let me know, what you thought of the video, and feel free to like and subscribe to the channel, which is my YouTube cliche. And until next time.